Welcome back to the Midnight Mystery Archive. And as we continue looking at cases of missing people, we're actually in the midst of a series. We'll go around the world, and we're starting right here in Nebraska with the case of Gina Bos. Am I pronouncing that right, Jannel?
It's Boss.
Boss. Okay, I've heard it two different ways, so I want to make sure that I get it right. Thank you for correcting me. And I am very fortunate tonight to be joined by Gina's sister, Jannel. Jannel, would you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Jannel Rap, and I'm a singer-songwriter, actually. I teach music, and I was a touring artist before my sister disappeared. And after 26 years, I am starting to do that again. So I don't know what else you want me to say, but I can say more about what I do. I don't want it to be all about me, but
No, that's really good, and I appreciate that because that's a big part of some of the work that's gone into 411 Gina that we'll get into a little bit later. So that's great, and I appreciate it. So, Janelle, one of the things that I mentioned to you before we hit record was one of the things that I really make a point of doing when covering cases of missing people is allow people close to them to share a little bit about their loved one so that we have a better understanding of who they are as a person, what makes them special. Because I think so many true crime podcasts and TV shows really lose sight of that part of it. Can you tell us a little bit about Gina, your relationship with Gina? Give us some insight to how her life was leading up to that unfortunate day on October 17th, 2000.
sure. Gina was a year younger than I am. So we were very close in age. We used to sing together all the time growing up. We had a There were 7 kids in our family, and there were 4 girls, 3 boys, and the 4 girls, we always sang together, and mostly at church, but we practiced all the time, and pretty much everyone in our family is a singer. But Gina was an artist, an extreme artist, in the sense that pretty much anything creative that she put her hand to or her mind to, she was able to achieve something really great with it, whether it was painting something, drawing something, designing a dress, cutting your hair. She molded clay and wire. And I mean, she designed flowers. She had a garden. Just anything creative she could do. And there was one conversation that I had with her shortly before she disappeared. And we were talking about how it's so hard for her to choose what to focus on because there's so many things she can do. And I said, well, just pick one and, that you really like. And she said, well, that's easy for you because you only have one thing.
You know, it sounds like she's the proverbial jack of all trades. Like she
She
just has the
really
skill
is.
to do it all.
She really just a brilliant mind, brilliant creative mind.
That's so interesting because, of course, a big part of Gina's story as you read about it is, of course, her love for music. And it sounds like that was really a family thing. Did that start with your parents, or was that something that you as kids just like, we love it, and then the older siblings did it and the younger siblings got into it?
Well, my grandfather, my dad's father, was a violinist. He played the fiddle and he used to teach lessons. And then my dad played guitar and all his brothers played music. I have an uncle that is a brother to my father who wrote music. Not a lot, but he did write music. And then we came along and there were 7 kids, so we didn't have a lot of money. So what we did for fun was sing. And my parents were already singing. My mom played by ear. She didn't come from a musical family, but she could play the clarinet by ear, the accordion by ear, and sing by ear. So she could sing all the harmony parts. So we learned how to sing harmony. We learned how to sing all kinds of songs. We spent a lot of time driving in the car, singing and harmonizing.
Yeah. Oh, those are great stories. One of the things that I think everybody's going to ask. So, what was your guys' favorite music? What did you like to sing the most?
Well, my parents raised us in the church, and those were the songs we were allowed to listen to. So those were the songs we sang. Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you say that. My mom, I grew up near Detroit, so Motown was huge with my mom because she grew up in Detroit. And she was kinda same way, little looser. She let us listen to a little bit of her oldies or Motown stuff, but, it was a lot of church music too, so I can relate to that. So, music becomes a part of all of your lives, and I know the night that Gina disappeared, she played an open mic night, correct?
Yes.
Was that something she did often?
I think it depended on the schedule with her kids. There were times when she did it more often. I don't know how often at that point in her life she was doing it because she just got a new job. She was an assistant manager at a Kinko's and she had just finished training not too much before that. I think actually the weekend before she had some training and she was super excited about that. And I think that was consuming more of her time.
Yeah. So that brings up, I think, an important question in her story because I've talked about this with other people. When it's somebody younger, we just automatically assume that something really bad happened. And then when it's somebody who disappears, it's a little bit older, my age, 46, we think, okay, they've lived some life. Maybe there's some relationships there that might have caused this to happen. Can you give us a glimpse into Gina's life? Because one of the unique things I found is that there really aren't any indicators that there was anything amiss in her life.
Right. It's it's definitely a puzzle that we don't have very many pieces for. She was a single mom of 3 kids at the time, 11, 13, and 15. And she did have a boyfriend that she'd had for, I don't know, less than a year. I want to say 4 to 6 months. And she was still friendly with her ex-husband. And he happened to be at the pub that night, and her boyfriend was supposed to be there, but he decided he needed to go home, which was about 12 blocks away, to take care of his cat for some reason. So Gina ended up going there by herself. And she had been there earlier in the evening at Dugan's pub. That smile you were talking about, is it the one where she's got her hair up?
Yes, I think so.
That's actually at Dugan's pub.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't the night that she disappeared, but she used to work at Dugan, so she knew a lot of people there. She didn't work there a lot, but she had kind of a part-time job there over a period of time. But at the time of her disappearance, she wasn't working there. So that picture was taken at Dugan's. And so she knew a lot of people there. She knew the employees, she knew the customers. And the reason that she was there earlier in the evening is because there was a bridal shower or a baby shower, and she went to support one of her friends. She brought a present. And then on her way out the door, they said, "Oh, come back for the open mic. You got to come back. Bring your guitar." She said, "I don't know. My son's coming home from Florida and it's my other son's birthday, so I'm not sure. We'll see." And she ended up being able to work it out and she went kind of unfortunately, but she went and she sang a few songs. Everyone said she was in a good mood. She was making arrangements to record with another singer-songwriter that was there that night. She was going to sing backup for something that he was doing a project, and she walked out the door and that's it. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. There weren't any screams. There's no fingerprints. Her purse wasn't found. Her keys weren't found, but her car was found across the street from the pub and her trunk was slightly open. Her guitar and the music that she brought with her that night were in the trunk.
So, my understanding is the next morning, the boyfriend is expecting to see her, or at least know where she's at, can't get a hold of her, pages her. Remember, this is 2000.
Yes,
And the pager is still at the house and it wakes the kids up. And
exactly.
kids call dad, and then I don't know if dad calls the grandparents, they call the grandparents, and kind of everything begins at that point once everybody realizes something's wrong. Can you share a little bit about what you know about the initial report of her missing and what the response was of local police? Because I've got to imagine the time that elapsed is roughly 6 hours from the last time from the time she left the pub to the time it's realized that something is wrong. Do you know what those initial hours look like from Lincoln PD? Have they ever shared that with you?
Well, from memory, those initial hours were her boyfriend wondering why he hadn't heard from her. This is around 2 a.m. She left the pub at 1 a.m. But then he thought, oh, maybe she forgot to text me. It's okay. So he went to sleep. And then at 6 a.m., he thought, okay, I can try to text her now or page her now. I'm on text mode, but I could try to page her now. And that's when the whole thing started. So what he did is he went down to Dugan's and he saw her car there. He saw the trunk slightly open, but he just sat there with another friend and they observed the car because they thought, well, maybe someone will come back. Whatever happened, maybe she's going to come back to the car. So they just sat there watching it. And then after a while, I believe they called my brother, my older brother. Of course, the grandparents had been called and all of that. But my older brother was over there at Vaughn, and finally they called the police. And the police took it seriously, which is highly unusual. Because normally with an adult, they'll say 24, 48 hours, or they probably just wanted to blow off some steam. They were having a rough time, or, they went home with someone and just forgot to let you know. And our family was so emphatic that she would never leave her kids, never. And I think that was the key to getting them working on the case right away.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Is oftentimes the attitude very early on with a missing adult is they're an adult. They have a right to go away if they want to go away. If they want to take a break for a day or two, they have every right to do that. But with your sister's case, it isn't just her by herself, right? She's got 3 children, she's got a boyfriend, she's got a new job. It's very unlikely that somebody just says, I need 2 days break and I'm going to walk away. So the initial response is actually encouraging, I would imagine, because so often that's not what happens with a missing adult.
Exactly.
Do you remember if they shared any early theories or thoughts? Because one of the things I have mentioned previously is that, 3 things happened. She put her guitar in the trunk, put her sheet music in the trunk, but didn't close the trunk. And that thing she has probably done, would it be safe to say hundreds of times?
It's possible, yes.
Yeah, takes maybe a second, 2 seconds tops to do that. So it feels like whatever happened very, very fast.
I agree.
Did the police have any early working theories around what might have happened? Because it's a very short window, it seems, that they would have been looking at.
Yeah. Well, there were a cacophony because we were able to get media for her right away.
Yeah.
There were just so many tips coming in from all different ideas of who did it and how it happened. And so I think they focused on Dugan's first. They went to every employee who was there that night. They wanted to see if the cameras had anything and they forgot to turn them on that night. So there was nothing. They talked to everybody who was in the bar, as many people as they could figure out were there that night. And that's where I believe they started their investigation, was right there at Dugan's where she was last seen.
Yeah, and logically, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Right.
She's in a social environment. Something happens immediately after she leaves that social environment. Could somebody there have seen something or maybe made a snap decision to do something? But none of that checks out, at
No,
least at least
nobody
that we
heard.
know of.
Yeah, nobody heard anything that has come forward. Nothing, no screaming or anything, which makes me think that it was someone that she knew. If they grabbed her, I think she would have screamed. If it was someone that she knew, she wouldn't, but she also was very protective of her guitar. She gave it a name. She called it Harley because she loved
Mhm.
Harleys. And if she went into a restaurant, her guitar went into the restaurant with her. She wouldn't leave it in her car because she was worried about the wood. And so, the temperature changes affect the wood on guitars. And it doesn't really make sense unless somehow this time she got distracted by, let's say it's not a stranger, and she didn't realize she didn't close it. Or she first was talking to them thinking she was going to close it, and then the thing happened, whatever it was. I don't know. That part doesn't make sense because of how protective she was of that guitar.
Mhm.
So it, there's probably some unknowns that, we just don't have the pieces for.
Yeah. Did she never share if there was anybody in her life around that time who caused unease or maybe discomfort that made her uneasy? Because I tend to think that there's a good possibility that was somebody she knew.
Yeah, I think so too. She did not share that with me.
Yeah. So it's been 26 years, almost 26 years.
Right.
How did the investigation go after, say, 6 months? What did it look like 10 years later, 15 years later? Because oftentimes in a long term missing person case, there's an initial push to try to find answers, interview witnesses, etc. But the longer you get from the day of the event, interest tends to die along that process. Has there been any activity within Lincoln PD to try to revisit the case with a new set of eyes? What is your relationship like with Lincoln PD today?
It's very good. That it always has been, and I know that not all families of the missing have been afforded what we have been, but they from the very beginning, they believed us that she would never leave her kids, and from then on, there has been a detective assigned to the case. Initially, I don't know how many detectives we had, maybe 10, like a whole unit were helping. Now, the thing that is a little unusual for my case, and it's really not fair, but if we think of the Nancy Guthrie case,
Mhm.
it received a lot of media because who her daughter is. My sister received more media because of who her sister was. And I'm not saying I'm famous or anything, but I had been a singer songwriter for a long time. I already knew how to get media because I booked my own tours, did my own media, got my own radio, got my everything. And I had also worked with Tom Osborne in the past
Mm.
for a project. And so she disappeared on a Monday night, I think. And there was a Husker football game on Saturday. And I was able, through Tom Osborne, I maybe shouldn't say this out loud because it's never happened again, because it was, you have to have some pull there. But they put Gina up on the Jumbotron on
Wow.
that Saturday at the Husker game. So between that and all the radio and the TV and the print news that I was able to get for her in that week, there was so many tips coming in that LPD had to follow up on. And it just kept going, kept going. There was so much. Now it was from all different angles and all different people. And it kind of, went around the block 100 times, the same rumor, the same this, but they always followed up. As far as I know, they were always following up.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very positive thing. Sadly, not many people experience that when their loved one goes missing.
We were
So,
fortunate.
yeah. So, give us a little bit of insight around 411gina.org and how that all came to be.
All right. Well, for the first 6 months looking for Gina, I really thought that I could, push through to national media because you know, within not too many hours, because we can travel anywhere, she could be anywhere in the country or maybe Canada or who knows. And so I wanted to get national media for her. So I did everything I could to try to get national media. I looked everywhere I could for her within my capability and my spare time. And at the 6 month point, I didn't have anywhere else to go, no one else to ask. They all said no. The national media said no because I wasn't famous. She wasn't famous. We didn't have a scandal. Basically, we didn't have a story. She vanished. It's like,
Mm.
we got to have some meat, right?
Yeah.
And it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I fell asleep right then. I was instant depression. Before then, the quest drove me. But as soon as that I heard that last no, it was like someone stuck a pin in me and I just fell asleep. So I went to sleep. I woke up about 2 or 3 a.m. I'm not sure the exact time now, but I woke up and sat up in bed and something said, just do what you already do. And what I was doing at that time was booking my own tours and I was doing my own media. So I thought, I'm going to do this for the families of the missing. I can't find my own sister, but maybe I can help them feel like someone's supporting them. I actually didn't think I could find anyone. I just thought I just want them to feel like someone cares. And that was the whole effort. So somebody donated CD manufacturing because back then everybody had CDs. Artists donated music. We had 13 events from LA to New York City. It was going to be a one off. That's all I was going to do. At that moment, I could see that far. And so I had my friends from LA to New York City putting on these very small events. We had a look, listen, and pass it on CD. We were ready to go to print. We had 12 missing people on there from across the country. And right before we went to print, this mother from Indiana called me and she said, Jannel, I heard what you're doing. And my son's been missing for 7 months. I don't think he's alive. He's 17. He worked 2 jobs. He left his checks there. He left his car. He took nothing with him. Something bad must have happened. And so I said, sure, we'll fit him on. So, 12 fits perfect on a CD, but fitting 13, we did it though. We did it. We managed to get him on there. So we gave the CDs away. We got them for free. So we asked people to look, listen, and pass it on. And after our New York City event, now mind you, they're just small little coffee houses and whatever. You know, I think the largest venue was 50 people. And we asked people to look, listen, and pass it on. And 3 days after the New York City event, this young man who was missing from Indiana was handed the CD with his face on it. And he went, my parents love me. They're going to forgive me. They'll let me come home.
Holy smokes.
And I remember getting the call that he was found. And so I had a sit up in bed moment. And then I had the moment where I got to sit down for this one. And tears filled my eyes. And I went, I just couldn't imagine someone being found, especially that miraculously.
Well, and this sounds awful, but alive.
Alive.
I mean, my gosh. Wow, what a story. So, I,
Yes.
I mean, that just had to have been, the high octane fuel you needed to keep pushing.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Somebody rang my doorbell and
No, you're fine.
I'm trying to move away from the door because I don't know what they want. But anyway, so where was I? So, I thought, this is what I have to do now. I don't have any choice. Like I felt like literally I had been guided to this point, and I started applying to have a nonprofit status. And we started doing concerts year round, calling them Gina concerts. And then in 2006, we wanted to make more noise. So we started calling it the Squeaky Wheel Tour. And the Squeaky Wheel Tour was October 17th, which is the day Gina disappeared, to her birthday, which is November 4th. And then the very first year, we had over 300 events in 14 different countries all around the states. I think we've only missed a couple of states in the US. And we just kept going like that.
It's a remarkable story. And as an estimate, how many families and missing persons have you featured over the course of that time?
Thousands. I don't know the
Wow.
exact number, but over 3,000 that we have featured have been found.
Wow,
Um,
no kidding.
yeah, not all happy stories,
Of
but
course.
closure.
Yeah, and sometimes with a missing person, sometimes that's all you can ask for. At least having an answer can be better than the question of what happened.
Yeah.
But as I looked at the website and I read more about the organization, it just I found I was so impressed because one of the things that I've seen in families that I've talked to is some families, they're just motivated. They're going to go out. They're going to find their loved one. Some families over the course of time, sadly, just come to the point where they just say, I don't think I'm going to get answers and I just need to move on. What I found so intriguing is that you took your pain, your sorrow, your family's pain and sorrow, and turned it into something that done so much good. That's
Thank
very
you.
rare. And I was so impressed. I have been scrolling through that website for the last 3 weeks. Is there a particular case that you can recall that family found an answer where it just other than the one you shared, that just made you feel like, "Wow, all this energy, all this work, all this effort was truly worth it."
There's a few. I have one that's kind of a longer story, but the ins and outs of it are just absolutely miraculous. If you want to hear that one,
Sure.
I'll try to do the nuts and bolts. But
Yeah.
early on, there was a little girl who was abducted by her father, dyed her hair, moved her to another state, and enrolled her in school. Well, our flyers went out all over the country because we had events all over the country. And when there's an event, how we're able to do so many events at once isn't because, we've got all this money and all this. We just know a lot of artists. So we
Sure.
put the call out and we ask artists if they're willing to dedicate their already booked event. So it's their event. And if they will highlight a missing person local to their area. So this little girl was one of the highlighted ones, and her flyer at that time we did flyers. Now we have people take pictures of the flyers at the events and pass it around on social media. But at that time, people were asked to take a flyer and post it somewhere. So this flyer got posted at the school that her father had enrolled her in. And a little girl, even though her hair color was different and her haircut was different, a little girl that was in her classroom went home and said, "Mom, I think this flyer at my school of a missing girl is a girl that's at our school now." And that's how she was found.
It's amazing to hear stories like this because it's, missing people, it's such a sad, difficult thing. I look at it from outside, right? I have not experienced it myself, but to see those glimmers of hope that answers can be found, I mean, has to be very, very rewarding for you. And I would suspect it's probably a very personal weight on your sister.
Yeah, it is. It feels like if we can't find her all this time, at least there's some good that is coming from it.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Janelle, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners before we end the interview?
Yeah, actually, there is something. Until my sister disappeared, I didn't really understand the value of one human being and how many lives they could touch or that they do touch in their lifetime. And what a hole that becomes when that person is taken away, especially when they're missing, because there's so many unanswered questions. But anytime we lose someone, there's a hole. And it was so profound to me that I've been pondering the value of the human. And today, honestly, I posted on Facebook because I've been thinking about value a lot and how that all of us have a reason for being. We all have value, and nobody's value is more vital or more important than anyone else's. It's just like, we're all parts of the human body, and it takes all of us to make the world really go. And we don't know what aspect our value comes into play. But when we're not taught to value ourselves as children, and very few of us are, if we don't really fully step into our value, then there's something missing in the world. And today what I was posting was, and this really cuts like a knife into my soul more so than any aspect of my sister's disappearance. And I don't think I've shared it before, but it came out today. And the thought that someone thought that they could not only take my sister's life, but they could just throw her away like she was garbage is almost more than I can bear. To think that they thought they were more valuable than her on some kind of skewed level because they've let 26 years go by. They've gone on with their lives, whoever they are, unless they're passed away now. They went on with their life. They clearly must not have told anyone because we don't know. Nobody's, said anything. And here we are knowing she's so valuable, but at the same time, that person that did that doesn't realize how valuable they are. And that's why they did it. Because when you feel valueless, what you do isn't as important as when you realize the value of every human being. And so basically, in a nutshell, I feel like every missing person is valuable, but also every human is valuable. And that might be the biggest lesson that my sister taught me. No one is throwaway. No one is less than. No one is better than. It's just a human box that we put people in that's a lie. And I feel like that's the best way I have to live my life now. And it's my biggest message. And I just want to say our website is 411gina.org. That's 411gina.org. If you want to help, you can go on our website, look up a missing person in your area, share the flyer, ask your friends to share. People are found that way.
Yeah, that's great, Janelle. And I just, again, I can't thank you enough for joining, sharing your insight. And when it comes to what you just shared regarding value, it's one of the reasons I do this podcast is every person has value. I don't care what your last name is. I don't care who your parents were. I don't care what town you grew up in. Everybody has value. Everyone was put here for a reason, and we need to love and treat each other with the utmost care and respect at all times. And I really appreciated that.
I agree completely with you, obviously.
Before I let you go, a few things I want to make sure you know about. First, if you haven't heard yet, the Archive Podcast Network has a new show. It's called The Halls of Mediocrity, and it's covering that place where sports and true crime meet. The trailers are out now wherever you get your podcast. Go find it and give it a listen. Second, and this one's personal, my first novel, Echo 1953, Book 1 of the Hollis Files Mystery Series, launches July 27th, 2026. It's available for pre-order on Amazon right now, and the link is in the show notes. If this podcast has meant something to you, I genuinely believe you will enjoy this book. And finally, if you want to go deeper on everything we do here at the Midnight Mystery Archive, our Patreon is now open. It gives you early access to episodes, case notes, behind-the-scenes production notes, and a first look at what's coming next. 3 tiers starting at $5 a month, a cup of coffee. A link is in the show notes. And as always, follow us on X, join our official Facebook group, and if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify listening, make sure to give us a rating. It goes a long way in bringing new listeners to the show and the cases that we cover. We'll see you next time.